Welcome back to the workshop. Today, we are going on a complete transformation journey. We are taking this ugly, oxidized chunk of metal and turning it into a razor-sharp, custom engraved, beautifully handled knife. And let's get to work. The first step in any great build is visualization. We take a paper template of our desired knife profile and lay it right over the rusty steel. Using a white marker, we carefully trace the outline, making sure to maximize the usable space on the blade. Once the design is locked in, it's time to make some noise. We fire up the angle grinder, equipped with a thin cutting disc, and begin the rough cut. This is the aggressive phase of the build. Showers of bright orange sparks fly across the workshop as we carefully follow the traced lines, separating the rough knife shape from the rest of the scrap metal. Once the rough profile is cut out, we move to the next stage of refinement. We clamp the heavy piece of steel securely into the workbench vise. Switching to a grinding disc on the angle grinder, we start to clean up the rough edges left by the cutting wheel. We are not just removing the rust here, we are establishing the primary bevels and getting the steel down to a clean, bright surface. The grinder dances across the metal, smoothing out the curves and defining the spine of the knife. But power tools can only get us so close to perfection. For the true shaping, we need to go old school. We clamp the blade onto a sturdy wooden block to keep it from moving, and we pick up a hand file. This is where the rhythm of the workshop takes over. With steady, deliberate strokes, we file the edges, refining the curves of the blade and ensuring the bevels are perfectly symmetrical. The sound of the file biting into the steel is incredibly satisfying, and you can actually feel the metal yielding to your hands, slowly taking on its final, elegant form. Now that the blade is taking shape, it's time to think about the handle. A great blade is nothing without a comfortable grip. We take a beautiful block of hardwood and head over to the miter saw. We carefully measure and cut the wood into 2 equal scales, which will sandwich the tang of the knife. The saw slices through the wood cleanly, giving us the perfect starting blocks for our handle. Next, we need to marry the wood to the steel. We take the blade over to the drill press. Precision is absolutely critical here. We drill holes through the tang of the knife, which will eventually hold the handle in place. Then, using those exact holes as a guide, we drill matching holes into our wooden handle scales. Alignment is everything. If these holes are off by even a fraction of a millimeter, the handle won't sit flush. To secure the handle, we need some metal pins. We take a piece of steel rod, clamp it in the vise, and use a hacksaw to cut it into small, precise lengths. We then take a file and chamfer the ends of the pins, making them slightly pointed so they can slide smoothly into the drilled holes. These pins will provide the mechanical strength that holds the handle together for a lifetime. Before we assemble the knife, we need to refine the blade one more time. We take it over to the belt sander. We press the blade against the moving abrasive belt. This step removes any remaining file marks, smooths out the surface, and really starts to sharpen the edge geometry. The belt sander brings a uniform, satin finish to the steel, preparing it for the most critical step in the entire process: heat treatment. Heat treatment is the magic that turns soft steel into a hard, durable blade. Using a high-powered heat gun, we blast the blade with intense heat. Once it reaches the critical temperature, and it's time to quench. In one swift, confident motion, we plunge the glowing blade into a bucket of oil, locking its molecular structure into a super hard state. With the blade hardened, it's time to clean it up and make it shine. Back in the workshop, we use sandpaper to scrub away the dark scale left by the heat treatment. Then, we attach a sanding disc to a power drill and begin the polishing process. We work through progressively finer grits, watching as the dull, dark steel transforms into a bright, reflective surface. For the final mirror polish, we mount a buffing wheel on the drill press. As we glide the blade against the spinning wheel, the steel comes alive, reflecting the workshop lights like a mirror. But a custom knife needs a personal touch. We take a rotary tool with a fine engraving bit and carefully etch a design into the blade. With an incredibly steady hand, we carve out stylized runic lettering, giving the knife a unique identity and a touch of ancient craftsmanship. The high-pitched whine of the Dremel fills the room as the intricate details are brought to life. Now, it's time for the final assembly. We mix up a 2-part epoxy, a strong adhesive that will bond the wood to the steel permanently. We apply a generous layer of the glue to the wooden scales and the tang. We insert the metal pins, press the wood firmly against the steel, and use heavy-duty clamps to squeeze everything together. We wipe away the excess epoxy that squeezes out and leave it to cure overnight. Once the epoxy is fully hardened, the handle is solid, but it's still blocky and rough. We take it back to the drill press, this time with a sanding attachment. We carefully grind away the excess wood, contouring the handle to fit the natural shape of a human hand. Wood dust flies everywhere as we shape the curves, ensuring there are no sharp edges and that the grip is perfectly ergonomic. For the final finish, we take a piece of fine grit sandpaper and hand sand the handle, smoothing out any scratches left by the power tools. We apply a protective oil, rubbing it deep into the wood grain to seal it and bring out the natural beauty of the timber. The wood glows with a rich, warm color, perfectly contrasting with the cold, polished steel of the blade. And finally, the moment of truth. The build is complete. We hold up the finished knife, admiring the seamless transition from the wooden handle to the polished blade and the beautiful custom engraving catching the light. But a knife is only as good as its edge. To prove its sharpness, we take a thick, glossy magazine and make a single, effortless slice. The blade glides through the paper like butter, leaving a perfectly clean, smooth cut. From a rusty piece of scrap to a razor-sharp masterpiece, this is the art of bladesmithing. Thanks for watching, and remember, always keep creating.